It's February 1st as I'm filming this, and so it's time to talk about the books that I read in January and the books that I'm planning on reading in February. Hi, my name is Sarah Freshly and welcome back to Freshly Read Books. So we're going to talk about, actually, is this in the wrong stack? This is kind of in the wrong stack. So that's just wrong in the thumbnail. That's fine. So let's start by talking about the books that I read in January. I didn't really have a TBR going into January because I just never made a wrap up for December and a TBR for January. I was hoping to read, I think, a bit more. I had like quite a few books that I was like in my head, like it'd be really nice if I got these done in January. And I didn't end up getting them done, but that's okay because I did read 8 books in January, which is always my like underlying goal. If I read 8 books in a month, I'm happy. Okay, so let's start with the first book that I read in January, which is Michael Cunningham's Day. So this is actually my TBR Spin pick for December of last year. Day is set on a single day, but of 3 different years. April 5th of 2019, 2020, and 2021. So it goes through like before lockdown, during lockdown, after lockdown. And I really like that as a premise. Like, I think that that's just a really cool way to write this kind of a story. And I will say that the portion that's set during 2020, some of the things about, especially because it was right after lockdown, I think it's easy to forget some of like the very earliest things that we were feeling during that time when we weren't sure like exactly the causes or what would be the best way to mitigate the possibility of getting COVID. And so seeing that represented here was like, oh yeah, that's right. Like we did do that. Like we did sanitize the things that we got from the grocery store, like packages we got. So that was really cool. Besides that, I just think that the characters could have been done better. It really did focus on mostly like one family, a sister and a brother at the heart of it, but the sister's husband, they had kids, and then also there were like another couple, and I can't remember how they related back to that main family, but they were in it, and I just think that none of the characters were really all that strong, except for maybe the brother. I think he was the strongest character. The story around him was my favorite. Overall, oh, I should say what my star ratings are because I'm doing star ratings now, in case you didn't know. I did a whole video star rating all of my books from last year because I didn't do it during the year, and now that this is something that I do. So I ended up giving this a 2.75, which might sound bad. I think that my rating system might seem a little harsh compared to some others, but I consider a 3 still like a good book. So this is just under that for me. Like I probably wouldn't recommend it to very many people at all, if any, but it doesn't necessarily mean that like I wish I hadn't read it. So 2 is still like, I'm glad I read it, but that's about it. 3 is when it gets into like, I would recommend it to specific people. 4, I'd recommend it to most people. 5, I absolutely love it. Next up is The Fury by Alex Michaelides. So this is the same author of The Silent Patient, which was huge. And actually he's currently doing a book tour, and he just stopped this past weekend in Tampa. So me and a couple friends, we saw him talk about this book, answer some questions. He seems so lovely. This book is about a group of people who go to an island in Greece. They are all or mostly related to the theater scene or entertainment in general. So theater movies, one of them's a playwright. That's the main character whose perspective we're getting through this. Very much breaks the fourth wall. That character, Elliot, he talks directly to you. When I read it, I didn't love it. I ended up giving it a 3-star, and I got the art copy, but this is the one that I got at the event, which I got signed, which is really cool. But on reading it initially, I didn't love it. I liked it. That's why I got a 3. And I could definitely see people liking this. Like I could see specific people really enjoying this book. It is a little like over the top and melodramatic, and it was to the point where I wasn't really sure if that was the intention behind it. I wasn't sure how seriously to take it, I guess. But after listening to Alex Michaelides talk about it, I was like, okay, this all makes more sense to me. He ended up writing this in a very different way than he wrote his first 2 books, in that he didn't plan it all out, that he just kind of had like fun writing this. And I think that that is very evident while you read it, which does make it a fun read. Also, I feel like the audiobook's done by like an actor, and I can't remember what his name is, but I'll put it here. And it was specifically who Alex Michaelides wanted to narrate the story. So I do think that maybe that would be a different experience, and I think that this would lend itself really well to an audiobook. So I am thinking about possibly rereading it, but listening to it this time, and see how that affects things. Okay, next I have sitting here this book, but this isn't actually the one that I read. I read Abaddon's Gate, which is the third book in the Expanse series. This is the fourth one. I no longer have the first three books of the series because I passed them along to friends that I'm really hoping are going to read them so that I can talk about them more. So I've been a part of a like science fiction buddy read group for quite a while now. I talk about it all the time. It's with Sandy from Miss Reads a Lot, Gemma from Gemma of Books, and Fraser from Springboard Thought. And right now we are working our way through the Expanse series. In January, we read the third book in the Expanse series, Abaddon's Gate, and it was wonderful. I had a lot of fun. I do think that it's my least favorite of the ones that I've read so far, but I really loved the first one, and I also really liked the second one. The second one had characters that I really love, and I think that that's what makes it so special to me. And the first one, I love the first book of series, typically. I love when an adventure is starting out. I think it's so much fun. And the third one, it was still very good. I still really enjoyed it, but it just is a little bit lower than those first two. That being said, I gave it a 4 stars. So of all the books I've talked about so far, it's still very much the highest in this. I really love the series. So me saying that this is my least favorite of the series so far doesn't mean that it is by any means not good. I still really enjoyed it. I'm still so excited to get into the next one. I feel like my books just continue, like the ratings keep going up as I go through January. That won't keep up pace, but it will for this next book, which is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. This book I gave 5 stars. I loved this book. It was so good. I'm so glad that I finally read it. This was my pick for TBR Spin for January, so I'm caught up again, which is very exciting. And so our January prompt was to read a Canadian book. I'm so glad that I finally read this. I can't wait to read more from this author. How do I explain what this is about without messing this up? It's a couple, and you're in the woman's perspective, who I believe is unnamed, and she is thinking of ending things. She's thinking of ending the relationship. It kind of takes place, a lot of it is on a car ride to visit the guy's parents. So she's like thinking about this like while in the car on the way to meet his parents for the first time. And then also includes that visit and more. It's not what I expect. Well, I expected it to be a little bit weird just because I saw the trailer for the Netflix movie. So I expected a little bit of like eeriness, weirdness, and also just like the cover itself kind of gives off that. And it did have that, but even still beyond that, there were some unexpected things happening that I really enjoyed, which made me really want to read more from this author. Okay, then I read a book that I borrowed from the library as an ebook, which was Lovelight Farms by B.K. Borison. So this is the first of a series, but I think that each of them just focuses on a different couple. So it's like a romance series. And I really wanted to read this for like the holiday season, but it just didn't come in time. So when it did come in January, I was like, you know what? I'm still kind of feeling like reading it. I still want to read a romance. I was still in that mood. And I think that this one hit the spot for me. I do think that I probably won't read any more romance for a little bit because I had a lot of fun being adventurous and trying those books out, but I'll probably take a break at least for February. But this book is like a fake dating trope. I'm gonna get good at the words and phrases for this genre. And also friends to lovers. Look at me. So the couple in it have been friends for a really long time. I can't remember their names. It's Luke is the guy. No, Luca. Luca is the guy, not Luke. Oh, and Stella's the girl, which is a name that has significance in my family, so I should have remembered. But Stella owns a Christmas tree farm. So she enters to be in this like competition that like a social media person is putting on, where she's visiting a bunch of like cute little places. And then at the end of it, she's gonna give one of those places a bunch of money to expand, or I don't know, something. And Stella on the application said that she opened the place with her boyfriend because she wanted it to seem more like a cozy thing, I don't know, or like add more story behind it, even though I don't think that that's any better than just her creating the place on her own. Hey buddy. She's just rubbing her face on the books behind me. Like her wanting to open a Christmas tree farm and doing it, like buying one and doing it. That's cute already. You don't need to add in like a relationship to that. But whatever, we'll just like go ahead and accept that. And so she ends up being a nominee, and then she has to like fake date Luca, her best friend. But I feel like there's really not much reason. Really, it's all on Stella, like why they're not more together. Personally, I think that the conflict wasn't super there, but I also didn't really mind that much. I think that it did such a great job of building like a cute little community that I really loved reading about, and I'm really excited to see what other couples in the future books in the series get together. I'm pretty sure I know what the next books, like pair is going to be. So I'm excited to continue on in the series. Also, I believe they each take place in a different season. So this next one would be the springtime book. And I think it'd be fun for throughout this year to read each of the books in each of the seasons, because the last book, the fall book, is coming out this year. And so I ended up giving that one a 3.5 stars. It was a solid read. And I think romance-wise, that's about as like high as romance books have gotten for me, where like romance is the main point of the book. So I feel like that's pretty good. I think that I'm trending in a good way as it comes to the romance genre, but I am gonna take a little break this month because I don't wanna like burn myself out on it. Okay, the next book, or books actually, that I finished was War and Peace. I know. And also Tolstoy Together. So War and Peace by obviously Leo Tolstoy, and my copy is translated by Anthony Briggs. It nearly took me a full year to read this, but I'm so proud of myself for finally having read this. I've talked about this book so many times that I don't really have much more to add to this, except to say that I will be making a video, or I'm pretty sure I'm scripting out a video that is just about this book, and it might be a little lengthy, and it's kind of a stupid idea for how to talk about it, but I'm excited about it. So I will talk more in depth about it, but just to reiterate what I've said about it in the past, I was surprised by how much I liked it. I was surprised that it's funny. There are funny parts to it. And also the characters, I don't really want to let them go anymore. Now that I'm done with it, it feels wrong. I'm starting to accept it more, but like for a couple of days after having finished this, I felt like a piece of me was missing, and that I had to say goodbye to a lot of people that were really big in my life, which feels so silly, but it's true. Okay, I'm fine. And then to talk about Tolstoy Together, which was collected by Yi-Yoon Lee. During the pandemic, she did this thing where she did a read through of War and Peace, which I believe she had read many times previously, but she wanted to read through it again and have just a little bit of reading every day with a large group of people. So a lot of people joined in, and I think they had some type of like message board system. So every day people would post their thoughts on the reading and everything. So every day you get like where you should be starting and where you should be ending that day. And then this page typically had Yi-Yoon Lee's thoughts on like a couple of things. And then this side typically had some thoughts from other people that were reading it. And a lot of times they would be about something specific. So this one has seriality as a state of mind. On day 4, it was about Tolstoy's introductions, the way he introduces characters, and comments people specifically had about that. I would highly recommend anybody considering reading War and Peace to read this. Seeing people so excited and so involved in War and Peace is really incredible. Also, as a weird side note, since this happened, since the whole like read through happened during the pandemic and at the very like height of it, it started on March 18th of 2020. Because of that, you're also seeing people grapple with the pandemic a bit. Like it's not a huge piece of this. Like obviously it's way more about War and Peace than that. But every once in a while, somebody will say like, it's funny to see these characters dealing with this type of isolation during this thing when we're feeling it. Like it feels very relevant to today. And it's crazy how much kind of compared back to what we're going through today. And I'm sure that that would be true for any time period that you read War and Peace. You're gonna find those glimpses of your own life in it. But that was just really special to see in this. And then I think it's just one more book. Yeah, and this one's kind of weird. This is a weird one to end on, but it is the last book that I finished in January. And that is Total Cat Mojo by Jackson Galaxy. I got this book when we got our 2 kittens, Zuko and Klaus, who are now over a year old. Actually, I got it at the point when we were working on introducing them to Scout, my older cat, who is now 14 years old, because that's a big change for an older cat to make. And so I think that really helped us, and it helped us as we were taking care of the kittens growing up. I think they are just such wonderful cats now. And also like they get along with Scout and everything. So it's all good, and I'm very happy to have read this book. I just hadn't read like the last couple, like the last 50 pages. Typically in the morning, I like to read just a little bit of a nonfiction book or a book that is challenging in some way. And for a long time, I was really just doing that with War and Peace. Like this was the book that I would read in the morning, and I put this on hold for War and Peace. I didn't give it a rating because I didn't feel like, I don't know, it felt weird to give it a rating. I also didn't give Tolstoy Together a rating. I would definitely recommend it, but it just feels weird to rate it on its own when it's like a companion thing. And then War and Peace, I gave a 4.5 stars. I really liked it. I think that if I was somebody who could see myself reading that length of a book again, then I think that upon reading it again, I would probably give it a 5 stars. but I don't think that that is ever gonna happen for me. Oh, I also did want to share what my current TBR number is, just because that's a big goal for me this year, is to lower that number. So I started the year with 91 books. So I think I'm currently at 84 books on my TBR, which is really good. However, I know that I did just get another NetGalley book, which would be counted. I'm only counting physical books unless it's a NetGalley book, just because that's been sent to me for review. And so it seems more pressing. So I did just get one of those, and I just got sent in the mail a book. Actually, I got 2 books in the mail. One of them is A Spell of Good Things, which is one of my favorite books of last year. I'm so excited to have a physical copy of this. And then this was the other book that I got sent, Ways and Means by Daniel Lefertz, which I don't even remember what it's about now, but they did email me and asked if I wanted a copy of this book. Alistair McCabe comes to New York with a plan. Young, handsome, intelligent, and gay. He hopes to escape his Rust Belt poverty and give his mother a better life by pursuing a career in high finance. But by spring of 2016, Alistair's plan has come undone. His fantasy banking job has eluded him. He's mired in student debt. By the time Alistair uncovers his employer's secrets, his life is in danger and he's forced to go on the run. Yep, okay, I remember why I wanted to get this book. It sounds really good. So yeah, this just came in the mail today, like right before I sat down to film this. And then I have the NetGalley book. So technically now my TBR is at 86, but that would be a part of February. At the end of January, my TBR was at 84. Hopefully all that makes sense. Now let's talk about the books that I'm planning on reading in February. So I don't think I'm gonna stick to a strict TBR for February because I want to be a little bit looser with it, but I want to share what I'm thinking of reading. And a lot of it is going to be focused on finishing books that I'm in the middle of, because I'm in the middle of a lot of books and I really want to fix that. It feels weird to be in the middle of this many. And then also I think that I would like to concentrate on the books that have been sent to me and get that number down a little bit. First of all, we have Take My Hand by Dolan Perkins Valdez, who was just announced as one of the jury members for the Carol Shields Prize, which I'm very excited to follow again this year. I happen to have been reading the book when that was announced, which is very cool. So yes, I've already started this one. I am, I think, about a quarter of the way through at this point, but this is my book club, my in-person book club books pick for this weekend. I'm really enjoying it so far. It's about Sybil Townsend, that's the main character, who is working at like a family planning facility, but she's kind of realizing that maybe they're doing something to women's bodies, specifically like Black and brown women's bodies, that they're maybe not being totally forthcoming about. So she's like looking into this more. I actually didn't read the synopsis at all before like diving into this, but that's what I've gathered from the part that I've read so far. So next we have A Little Luck by Claudia Pinedo and translated by Frances Riddle. This is my pick for TBR Spin for this month. So the prompt was to pick a book that makes you feel like you are outside in the sun. And it was that moment, looking at my stack, that I realized that I had picked a lot of very sad or dark books. So it was a little bit tough to pick, but I ended up going with A Little Luck because it's set in Buenos Aires, and also just the cover kind of looks like the sun. So maybe that'll give the feelings of reading in the sun, even though it's bound to be a sad book, knowing Claudia Pinedo. Next, we have Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I'm finally gonna read this. I feel like I've said this a lot lately, but I think that I may have read this when I was young, but I don't remember any of it. I'm excited to like actually read it now. So this is one of my 2 spins from BookTube Spin, and this is the rest of the list with the exception of one other book that I'm going to talk about in a second. I just did a video talking through my whole BookTube Spin stack, so I'll share that. And then also if you want to like join in, I'll share Rick's video. But yeah, that's why I'm finally going to be reading this one. This is my new nonfiction in the morning book now that I've finished Total Cat Mojo. I've been reading Entangled Life, which is about mushrooms and fungi, and it's very cool, like how much it influences our lives and everything in ways that you would never even expect. And then I've got The Ministry of Time by Kellyanne Bradley. I found out about this from Dee Dee, her Instagram account. She posted, I think it was like just a story, but I saw this book and it was just beautiful, and I messaged her and was like, that book is beautiful. So she told me that it's about a woman who agrees to work for the government by hosting an explorer from history during a time travel experiment, and they fall in love. So that made me want it, and so then I reached out to Avid Press and was like, can I please have this? And they said yes. It doesn't come out for another couple months, May, but I'm very excited about it, so I might read it in this month, even though I probably should wait until it's closer to its published date. but I probably won't. I don't know, we'll see. Then we've got The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This is another book club book, so I want to read it so that I can join in on that book club. Also, it's one that I'd been interested in for a long time. All I remember about it is that Evelyn is going through the same day over and over, and I think like she dies in that day. So she's trying to like change that maybe. Then we've got For You and Only You, which is by Caroline Kepnes. This is one of the books in the You series, which became the very famous Netflix You series, but have like fully diverged at this point. I started reading this, I gotta say, like maybe over a year ago at this point, but I only made it 40% of the way through, and then I had to return the book to the library, and then I just never got it again, and then I kind of forgot about it. But it's been sitting at the very bottom of my Storygraph currently reading list for a very long time now, and so I really want to pick it back up and actually finish it. Then we've got Northwoods by Daniel Mason. I've talked about this book a few times because it keeps popping up on my TBR. Like, it's tough when it's a book that like I don't have to read for a specific video, or I don't have it in mind for a specific video. It's tough to prioritize those, and I feel like this book is suffering because of that. Like, it's not sticking around because of that, but I really want to read it because everybody loves it. So I think maybe this month, hopefully. Then we have A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas. So I've been reading this for like over a month, I want to say now, and I'm there in it, and I'm just not enjoying it as much as the second book. I'm not disliking it as much as the first book either, but I do really want to get through this series because I have a lot of friends that really like Sarah J Maas, and I want to be a part of the hype for the whole thing, but I am struggling. And could somebody tell me if the perspective of the next book follows the same person as this one? I know it's shorter, so maybe it's not as big of a deal, and I believe the next one follows a different perspective. But I think I'm just sick of her perspective at this point. I don't like the way that this story is being told, I think. Like, there is a lot happening, but it just feels really directionless. Everything seems so arbitrary. It'll be like we have one big problem, and it feels to me like there's about a million ways we could go about trying to fix it. But to them, it feels like there is one way. And so it's like, okay, let's just agree that that is the way to fix this. But then that's like a very lofty, like far off goal. So I'm like, okay, I guess we're not quite there yet. We're trying to do something else to like get us there. But then it'll be like, this task, this is what we can do that'll help us get there. And I'm like, what? Okay, yeah, sure, that could help. And then we like do that task, and then it's done. And then it's like, and this task. And I'm like, okay. I wish I had a better idea of like totally what you wanted to do before getting to like your end game here, but instead it just seems like really random, like, whoa, okay, this person now, yeah, we'll deal with them now, okay, sure. And I just feel lost in it all. So that's why it's taking me a while. Then we have The Three-Body Problem by Jijin Liu, and translated by Ken Liu, which I meant to read in January, but I didn't. It's my other spin from the BookTube spin list. And once again, I like just talked about this one and why I wanted to read it in my BookTube spin video. So if you want to see more, then check that out. But basically it's a trilogy that is super sci-fi, but sounds like very different, and it's set with like a specific historical event in mind, and it sounds really cool. Then lastly, we have Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. So this one I am halfway through at this point. This has like been my main read right now, the one that's got most of my attention. I'm having a fun time still. There are things about it that annoy me, but I don't care. I'm having a great time. I think probably Fourth Wing I did enjoy more, but as I said earlier, I love the starts of series. But still, I'm having a lot of fun with this one. Something crazy just happened, and so all I'm thinking about is getting back into this. If you don't know the series, I don't know how, but it's about dragons and stuff, and their riders, and there's like possible rebellion, and there's a dragon school, and all this stuff, and it's crazy. And actually, there is one more thing I wanted to talk about, which is Memories Legion by James S.A. Corey. So this is a collection of short stories, novellas that happen in between the books of the Leviathan Wakes, or of the Expanse series, and I want to read this while going along with the series. I think I'm gonna do it in publication order. This is put into chronological order, but I think I'm going with the publication order just because online it seems like that's the recommended way, and after talking to Fraser about it from A Springworth Thought, who has already read through these series and the short stories, that I think is gonna be my method. So I'm planning on reading one or two of the stories from this month. Basically the goal is to catch up on the stories that I should have already read if I was going in order from when I started the series. I'm trying to get those done before we start book 4, which we're planning for April. So technically this is on my TBR, even though it's just like a little portion of it that I'll be reading. I feel like that was a lot. I thought it'd be more comfortable to sit on the floor, but after doing it for this long, maybe it's not. But I do like changing it up every once in a while. I feel like I'm always in my gray chair. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed watching. Please let me know what your favorite book from January was, and then what book you're most excited to read in February. Thanks. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it. If you did, consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.